just touches your arm at this point. She's like ignoring you arguing.
Yeah, so while you were arguing...
Cooties!
Yeah, while you were arguing, Aelin cures you for 16 health.
Alright.
While also rolling a 1.
So that's 13, 16, so that's...
So I also want to check in as well with I also want to check in as well with Farron and Morella, who were tasked with like sweeping the temple, right, to make sure that nothing else is moving. So is there any, like, maybe we see Aelin, like, you know, as she's healing Hannibal, and then going to rush over to, I assume, Kree. Is there any conversation between Morella and Farron as you're kind of like bolting through the church, you know, smashing skeletons, and there's probably some like low-level skeletons that have kind of trickled in from the ensuing battle outside, that are easy enough to just kind of pommel strike into oblivion.
Right.
Well, Morella can pommel strike into oblivion. I'm not good against skeletons, as we have surmised.
True. So is there any like conversation between the two of you, or is it just simple cleanup crew?
Well, it depends. Does Farron say anything?
Nothing especially apart from light conversation with such.
Light conversation as you smash skeletons. I like it. It's good.
It would probably be for Morella. It'd probably just shit. I'm trying to think. It's probably actually fitting for Morella because she's just coming out of the rage and things of that sort. She just can't really think straight. I guess as we're cleaning up, I guess Morella just simply asks if Farron is all right.
Hey, surprisingly entirely in one piece after a fight.
You see Morella's armor like crushed in from the front, where she took all those like massive attacks from the bone golem.
Mm-hmm.
Though you seem a little worse for wear
I'm
yourself.
fine.
Are you sure we don't want to get you to Aelin for...
No. I am sure.
Alright, my lady.
Though your concern is comforting. But do not worry about me. I have suffered a lot worse.
You and me both, Morella. You and me both.
Yes, especially you.
I think Bernadette lets out a noise that you mistake for a chuckle.
I mean, I'm certain you still have the scar on your chest, do you not?
Yeah, remember that time you got real fucked up?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's why I said it.
That's a scar that's never going away.
Yeah.
So.
Nope.
That was pre-Aelin too, so.
Yep.
No chance there.
Mm-hmm. So. But yeah, if that is all you say, it's just simple cleanup crew.
Yeah, I think it's pretty systematic with the two of you. You fought side by side long enough to simply march through any enemy that stands in your way. So, Jericho and Hannibal, you guys drag Aelin over to Kree, I assume, is where you're headed?
Yeah, I'm not going to let her touch him yet.
Yeah, no, I was thinking not Kree on the grounds that he's currently possessed by some kind of possible ancient necromancer spirit. I was thinking that I'm trying to get her, and just her, ideally, back to resurrect George.
Okay.
Not gonna lie, super rude, guys.
Not gonna lie, you're possessed by an undead demon thingy.
It's probably for the best if we don't now have an angel rub her hands all over you. One of you is going to burst into flames.
Presumably,
I might not be
he's gonna
Aelin,
burst
so
into
I'm
flames.
not willing to take that chance.
So I guess the real question is, what story do you tell Cahill to leave Aylin's side?
I think Jericho would probably ask Hannibal if he can run interference for a moment.
Very well. In that case, Cahill, I'd like to discuss with you what we found in the temple so far.
Yeah, okay, so for a moment he kind of like looks, and he says, "Perhaps there is a better time, Hannibal. Right now we must ensure that everything is safe."
Sir, nothing is safe right now. There's a battlefield going on, and I'd like your input on whatever's happening in this temple.
Yeah, and so I think like you see him, he's conflicted. Do you want to roll a persuasion check here?
Sure, and I'll use my Tides of Chaos.
That's probably a good idea. It's not going to be an easy one. Cahill is not easily swayed by others. 27 though is definitely enough to sway him. So I think that he looks at Aylin, who has seemingly like recovered her senses a little bit.
Yeah, and I also think I'd probably wave him off. So, like, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Sure, yeah.
As if he would pay attention to what you want.
Also true. Yeah, and I think he looks and then he nods, but like you can tell like he's gonna try and keep you in eyesight at all times. But he does turn his attention to you, Hannibal, to discuss what you want to discuss.
If that's the case, then, and did you inform me of the plan, Jericho?
Yeah, he would say something like, "I'm gonna go see if Aylin can do anything for George."
Okay.
The meaningful note. I assume Hannibal remembers who George is.
Okay, in that case, I kind of beckon him to gesture like so that we can get down on the first floor.
Right. Do you like you could like bring him underneath the stairs so he couldn't like actually see up there?
Yeah, like so that because I'm thinking, from what I understand about Cahill, he's not a particularly religious fellow.
Yeah, surprisingly so. He's not particularly religious. He is.
So
that's what he has Aylin around for.
Yeah, so I might fill him, not the whole story yet, because we don't know the whole story.
Sure.
But a little bit in that something is now following Kree, and that we may need to deal with it. Basically, I'm not exactly making this a very long thing, but
yeah,
just,
yeah. So you go into like the, here's what happened, because remember they couldn't see what was going on, right? Like that was all invisible to them. So you say, Kree jumped off, removed the book, the necromancer burnt up whatever happened to him, and then once that happened, we noticed there seems to be, like, the book was destroyed, but there seems to be some sort of presence that is following Kree that we may need to get removed. And Cahill probably like nods in agreement and says, we should have the healers look at it. Maybe it's some sort of spirit that we can banish, etc., etc. Like he begins to go down that path.
And I can also kind of advise him about what kind of healers that we should bring in. Not ones that would try to murder him on first sight.
That's like Aylin and no one else.
Yeah, I think that if you say that, he probably looks at you and he's like, is there a threat here?
I give him a serious look. I don't know yet, but we'll just need to see.
Yeah, and
I don't feel right just killing a man just on a superstition. We've evolved past that point.
Yeah, I think he kind of looks at you.
Morality is so interesting.
He looks at you, and I think he says, "Men have been killed for far less, and will be again, as much as we would like to stop that. If there is a threat that must be dealt with, one way or the other."
Yes, but let's determine if it's a threat first.
Yeah, and I think he's like, well, then I leave it to you.
All right, then. Let me discuss with you as well what else we found.
Sure.
Because there was some other stuff, and also I want to discuss the interesting hunters that we encountered.
Sure. So you begin relaying all that information, and Jericho, you lead Aylin up the stairs to the...
Yeah, and he's saying, as Hannibal and I were infiltrating this place, we found one of the royal guards who'd been separated from the others. He unfortunately stood quite bravely against the undead as they were approaching, and it went badly for him. But I don't imagine there's much that's beyond you now, is there?
Yeah. As you say it went badly for him, we see, like, his form with the big pool of blood that's... Because he's been completely beheaded, right? Like, his head came off and rolled across the ground. And is completely separated from his body. And Aelin, like, that's the scene you walk up on. As he said, it went poorly for him.
Aelin just looks down. She's like, oh my. And, like, walks over and, like, seemingly like a doctor would in reaction to blood, she, like, sort of very gently kind of turns his head to face her.
His separated head?
Uh-huh.
He like rolls her over.
And just kind of like stares at him just very sadly.
Yeah, I mean, he's super dead. Like,
and I think after a moment she, like, looks over her shoulder at Jericho and she just says, what exactly do you hope me to do?
Lady Ashriver, I don't know what you are, but I know that you're capable of things that no one else seems to understand. And I know that if you're anything, you're a healer. I know that there are ways of reviving people even when they're this far gone. Aren't there?
Aelin doesn't meet your eyes and looks down and says, and just nods. But...
And I know that most wouldn't. But you would, wouldn't you?
She looks down again and nods.
Yeah, and you know the particular stigma around this sort of thing. It is, in the eyes of the greater population of the Empire, no better than necromancy to bring someone back from the dead. And yeah, you definitely know that, like, you have enough power from Shalia that you could probably perform a miracle-like feat in this scenario.
I think after a pause, Aelin says, why him?
Because he tried and he failed, and that... Because apparently we're fighting the Lady of the Lake now for the sake of Lord Cahill, and she doesn't care what's happening here. Someone has to care. There has to be something that isn't just playing with us. That's you, isn't it?
Seeing how much heart you just said that with, I think Aelin kind of takes a deep breath and she says, yes, I will be such thing. And just starts to wave her hands over the body.
Yeah. So do you actually have the spell written down and put in your fancy dancy character sheet to help this poor soul out?
Is Revivify gonna have the juice for it?
You know, it probably hasn't been much more than a minute, I would say, if at all. I
have more, if that doesn't count.
But I think that he's beheaded, right? Like, I think that he's taken the full death here. It's probably a little bit more serious than what Revivify can do. Yeah. I think that is probably the thing, because I think that the key wording here, at least for me, is it closes all mortal wounds, right? Like, and you, like, it specifically talks about, like, if you're missing the head, it doesn't work, but you have the head. So yeah, I think that we see, like, you position the head in such a way, not backwards.
God damn it.
Can we have it backwards?
That's what Hannibal would do in this scenario. You know, you rest the head very gently right above the neck portion, and you begin to channel your magic. And I think that like Jericho, like level 5 arcane spells are inherently different from level 5 religious spells, right? It's almost the difference between a level 5 arcane spell, like you can feel the power that is emanating, and the level 5 religious based spell is probably more a visual effect. I think that the glow starts off small but begins to go brighter and brighter until probably Aelin and the form of George are so bright it's hard to even look at them. And it kind of like temporarily blinds you and you begin to see stars if you look in other locations. And I think that like everybody else in the church, and also probably since there's an open to air giant hole in the ceiling, I think that we perhaps see like from the outside like people looking at this bright light that's shining out of the temple now and not really sure what it is. And Aelin, when you release the magic, it drains you of that energy. And we see George, who's lying on his back now. You know, you rolled him over onto his back, and he's not conscious probably right away. He is kind of just breathing gently as he lies there. And you know as well, Aelin, that you were able to capture his spirit before it departed fully in this scenario. So once that occurs, what do you do?
I think I just kind of have my hand on George's cheek, and I look over at Jericho and just say, "It was good we were quick. It'll take some time before he wakes up, but he is back with us."
Probably for the best. Jericho then starts trying to clean up some of all of his blood that is on the floor, just precipitating it away.
Yeah, literally all of it. However many gallons of blood are in a human.
Yeah, the whole thing. That's Lady Ashriver. I suppose we don't really have time to discuss this right now, but Jericho is trying to deal with a lot of things right now, so this is just one more note that he's sort of pressing into. I'm going to deal with this later, but you can read in him very easily sort of the awe of having just seen Aelin ask God for a favor and have it granted immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And he just says, I think I may need to speak to you about Shalia when we have time.
Aelin nods and just say, "Anytime, any place." And she looks oddly calm and peaceful. Like for what she was just able to achieve, it's as if it was no big deal.
Not even looking back at the explosion.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there is an interesting occurrence, though. See, tapping into the spirit world, especially in a location such as Middenheim, has some unintended consequences. As we may or may not remember, the city of Middenheim itself is there's a particularly thin layer between the spirit realm and where you all exist in the mortal realm, right?
The veil is thin.
Right, yeah. To use a Dragon Age term, right, the veil is thin in this place. As Aelin, you've experienced multiple times before. But this time, I don't think it's you that experiences it. I think that Jericho, as you turn to go, a movement catches your eye, kind of off down the corridor, like walking in and out of the doors. It almost looks like a figure made of mist or fog, kind of moves and dissipates. And you look back quickly, and it was simply just a trick of the light in your mind. But you've seen so many crazy things. Who knows? Maybe your brain's just playing tricks on you. But having witnessed this event has caused some interesting things to begin to develop for you.
Deal with those regrets when we come to them.
Also, I think for Aelin, there is probably a minor side effect that once you kind of like the magic is released and like you ensure that George is no longer dead, you begin to you hear like a dull humming sound, and when you focus on it, it kind of dissipates, but you're able to pick out that it almost sounds like a hymn being sung. And like you listen intently for a moment, you can't pick out the words, but it sounds as though it is like reverberating as you remember back from when you were, preaching. When the hymns would reverberate off the walls of the church. Kind of feels like that. And I think that, you listen intently and then you can actually equate it to outside of the church. There are like the cheers and jeers and singing and the rousing chorus coming from the armies that they've put the enemy into a full rout. And so like for a moment it didn't sound like that, but then your brain probably switches into a mode of like, oh no, that's obviously what I was hearing. So for the two of you, congratulations. So I guess the next question is, as we wind down this scene, the battle outside has been decided, and the group of you have Morella and Farron. You finish your sweep of the church. Everything appears to be all taken care of. Hannibal, you finish your conversation with Cahill. He nods, like probably making mental notes for how to deal with these hunters. How to deal with these different types of undead that they've encountered. I think like he does say probably that he hopes that is all taken care of now that this dread necromancer Varen is dead. But obviously Hannibal, that if one person could do it, it could be any number of people that could do it. And you also realize as well that like Varen was the magical half of the coin, and there's still a very.
I would definitely say that to him is like, we're not done yet. We don't know where Anders is.
Right, yeah, and Anders is the more martial half of the coin that is probably the even larger target in this scenario. So he nods, and I think you see some of that fire return to him. You see some of that like that bravado that he generally has. He's recovering a little bit more himself after the past few minutes have occurred. And with his confidence returned, he begins making preparations for the next phase of the plan, which is perhaps influenced by whatever you guys think is best.
Okay, and but before, like, because I plan on going to go investigate like his belongings.
Yeah.
I say to Cahill, before I leave, remember that you belong to yourself, or to Aelin. You don't belong to her.
Yeah, and I think that he looks very confused by that, and kind of like he gives you like a weird, an odd, strange look, like whatever could you mean? But then I think that you realize he kind of blows it off as like oh, you're trying to boost my confidence thing. And so he probably like gives kind of a half-hearted laugh and slaps you on the shoulder and says, he probably says, "Aye, and what man or woman could control the future emperor, am I right? None, I say."
Aelin.
I kind of sigh, realizing that he didn't understand what I meant.
Yeah.
And say, "Yeah, sure. All right. You go have fun."
Yep, absolutely.
And then I go off to meet Jericho.
Yeah, so Kree, what are you doing during this whole period of time? You've collected scraps. Are you going to like literally just begin your ritual right here?
No, not really the appropriate place.
No, definitely not.
I'm gonna wait till camp. I don't know. There's not much for me to do. I didn't really see anything that happened with Cahill, and they're just talking about me behind my back. So I'm just gonna go walk up to Cahill and just pretend like nothing happened and just be like, "Hey, what's the next step?"
When he tries to go near Cahill, I would probably be like, "Hey, Cree, why don't you come with me and Jericho?"
Sure.
Yeah, and Cahill probably says to you as you're like walking away, he says, "I am sorry to hear about your noble mount, Cree. I hope that we can find you one just as suitable."
Do not worry, Cahill. He will be back soon enough. He's tenacious like that.
I think Cahill probably like looks around at the gore that is currently coating all of the inner walls here.
It's probably a cultural thing.
Yeah, I think that's probably what he says. He probably just like shakes his head and like if we get his inner monologue, he's like, "Lizardmen are strange," and just like he turns to leave and go make his own plans. So Morella, so the group of you, I would say, like meet back up, perhaps at the top of the staircase. And I know that a couple of people want to go investigate belongings. Anyone not doing that, what would you be doing? Is everybody going to go investigate belongings then?
I'm literally just following Hannibal. I don't know what he wants me for at this point.
Aelin, hearing that the battle, quote unquote, is over and people were cheering, she assumes that there are people who need assistance cleaning up the mess. So I think that that's what Aelin would immediately leave to go do if nobody needs her in that current moment.
Yeah. Morella is going to say, "I need to attend to a matter." And then goes off. She is going to see if she can find the garden once more.
Okay.
So she's going on a trek.
Okay. So, you know, the aftermath of the battle, Morella's like, "I have more important things to do." Okay. What about you, Farron?
Is Farron even here?
Is he?
It's a good question.
Hello? Will? Hello?
Will check. Did he fall asleep?
Will check.
Question mark.
He's
Yeah, he might have
busy.
fallen asleep. He might have fallen asleep. That's fine. Rip Will. So I guess we progress to I guess we'll talk to Aelin real quick here. So Aelin, Cahill is headed in the same direction as you, so he probably accompanies you out to the battlefield, and as you're walking in like this momentary reprieve from work, essentially, he probably says to you, "My lady, when we have a moment, there is something I wish to speak with you. This is," and he kind of like looks around. He's like, "Not the appropriate place. Perhaps somewhere more private."
She just kind of looks at him funny and just says, "I think it's nice that you think that we'll find that here."
I think he smiles, and again, it's Cahill of old, right? It's the charming smile that makes all the girls' hearts flutter. But you're probably immune to it at this point. He flashes the smile and he says, "But my lady, I am to be the future emperor. Would not a moment alone with my love be enough? Seems a simple task."
I would put nothing past you to find that here. So yes. Just kind of like a tiny laugh, but then also immediately sees past him to the horrific scene around
Yeah,
him,
no,
and
there's
her
like
face just kind of immediately drops after that.
literally
really sweet
thousands
moment.
of people littered across the streets, just like bleeding into the gutters, right? Like that's basically the scene that is arrayed before you during this seemingly lighthearted conversation. And hello, Kat. Hi. Yes. And so as you guys are progressing outwards, you, I assume, begin heading off in the direction of where all the wounded are being carted, and you begin to do your Aelin-like thing, right? And Cahill heads off in his own direction as well, probably to meet with the captains and lieutenants to coordinate the next part of the plan here. So we'll jump over to Morella because we want to give Will ample time to wake up. So Morella, you begin heading in the direction of wherever. Are you kind of just wandering? Okay, good. So the group that is heading into the investigation, into the study of the Dread Necromancer Varen.
Did they get moved into another thing?
Nope. They're both still literally right here.
Okay.
They're just both not here, apparently. So the three that are heading into the study to investigate, we'll make it 4 because Farron's now with you, because I deem it to be so.
All right.
I could always just take him away. So.
Oh, hey, there he is.
Sorry,
there he is.
I had to deal with the house owners real quick.
Oh, hey, Farron. Will?
Farron's back. Farron, Will.
So I feel like the funniest scenario here is that he fell asleep and finally like toppled over and like jostled his mouse.
Yep.
And is now like resting his head on the keyboard.
Or at the very least, all of a sudden, hearing Dalton / Morella's voice made his inner parent come out and be like, "Shit!"
Correct. Yeah, that's now canon. So the 4 of you, we'll get back to you in a second, Morella. The 4 of you that are investigating the study. Jericho, obviously you and Farron know the way. While you did this invisibly the last time, you know the way down there, and you get back to that. Correct, it was you and Hannibal. I'm sorry, it was not. No, you and Farron stole the staff.
Me.
Oh, from that time.
Yeah.
From our previous.
No.
Before this fight.
No, when you and Farron stole the staff, you actually went like down.
Okay.
Into
gotcha.
like the dungeon area, right? The like where the head priest of Ulrich like has a little personal worship area that has been turned into a necromantic study. Yeah. So you head down the long stone corridor, and you get to that room with the 4 pillars. It's circular in origin. It's got that desk in it, and it's got that it's got the rune right on the ground that was there before. And you remember, like we have a little flashback scene of the last time that you and Farron were here, where you saw, this is where you saw Anders for the first time, right? When he appeared to speak with Varen, and apparently, I mean, the conversation that was had, he was not very happy with Varen. He believed that Varen was like taking steps too far.
Whatever that means.
Whatever that means. And so after his departure, in which he cut a hole in space-time and stepped through it.
Oh, come on, we all know that trick.
But yeah, true. At least you do. We've seen you use it.
Hannibal too.
Oh, Hannibal too. True.
Not as flashy as I am, but anyway, sorry.
Yeah, so you get back to the study, and it's reminiscent of that time, but also is clearly like not being lived in currently. It looks like Varen hasn't had a whole lot of time lately to work out of this location.
Also, real quick, before I actually enter the study, I imagine my detect magic might be starting to ding down, so I'm going to burn 2 of my first levels so that I can get back up to 3 sorcerer points, then burn those 3, or wait, no, burn 2 to get a 2nd level slot back, right? Or no, I burned
to get
3.
a 2nd level slot.
Okay, then I burn all 3 to get a 2nd level and recast it.
Okay.
So that also means...
Yeah, that also means you have to roll on that table. Oh, okay.
So...
okay. So this includes you, by the way. So I'm going to go down the list as your names appear on Discord. So a 1 represents Morella, or I'm sorry, 1 represents Hannibal, 2 represents Farron, 3 represents Kree, and a 4
It's gotta be
represents
Farron.
Jericho in this scenario.
Oh
No,
my.
it is Kree. So Kree, I think what happens here is, and this isn't flashy, right? In fact,
No, like
I
nobody
like
knows
to.
what's happening.
I don't even think you know what's happening, right? Because it's wild, right? You're not even sure yourself, perhaps, the effects of what happens.
Yeah, like it's just all that. What I imagine is that with this, it's just I don't know what's happening until it happens.
Yeah, and how I imagine it too is the wild magic. It basically conjures magic from like the residual air around you. So you aren't even like directly casting a spell or anything like that.
No,
it just simply
like, it's not even a magical
simply
effect.
happens.
It's just
So-
you're just poisoned.
I think that the only thing that happens here is the 4 of you are like trudging down the staircase. We see Hannibal like, he begins to like center himself, and then he casts, and we see like the brief flash of magic come over his eyes, so that he can see. And
What?
all we see is Kree kind of like wobbles and weakens and has to like put his hand on the wall to steady himself. And all of you kind of look at each other and then look at Kree. Well, at least the 2 of you that know there's kind of something weird going on with Kree, right?
Yeah, we're immediately concerned.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it triggers that immediate concern of like,
Oh
what's
god, it's time already.
right? What's happening to him? What's going on? Farron
Ugh,
probably like,
where's the bathroom?
yeah, Farron probably like puts a hand on his back. Is like, Kree, are you okay?
No.
Yeah.
Where's the bathroom?
So yeah,
Well, is that a legitimate way of getting rid of a necromantic possession?
I don't know.
What kind of scientist are you?
The good kind or the bad kind, depending on who you ask.
Yeah, that checks out.
so perhaps Farron offers to take Kree like outside, like to get fresh air. Maybe leaving Hannibal and Jericho alone.
Okay, but
on
don't
this
touch him
excursion.
too much.
I think that like Farron just like looks at you and shakes his head, and
I
like
know, I'm
proceeds
being
to.
serious. Don't.
Just get us if anything seems to be happening unexpectedly, not the obvious things that he intends.
Right, yeah. I think Farron just like looks strangely at the 2 of you and then begins to help Kree back up the tunnel to go get some fresh air and perhaps heal himself.
So, along the way,
also I need to know. Ow, fuck, cat. Ow! Well, now I'm bleeding. Sorry. Kree, you're poisoned for 3 hours. FYI.
That is fantastic.
That
So,
means for
along-
3 hours, essentially, you like won't be able to start your ritual. I would say.
I'm
Yep.
gonna be behind the bush for the next 3 hours.
Also,
Yeah,
so
just
as we're walking
retching.
down, I want to ask Jericho. So, did it go well?
Seems to be, yes. Seems to have just gone fine. Have you ever seen her do that before?
I didn't see it.
Yeah, I'm just asking if you ever seen her do it before. You've known her longer than I have. Does she?
I heard about the revivify thing, right?
I mean, you knew that was the plan, and Jericho's indicating that it's happened. But if you mean past,
No, I mean, like, I hear about the whole revivify thing, like how she brought back, because there were a couple of people there with her. I was just specifically not there.
When did you use Revivify, Aelin?
Wait, what?
On the jeweler.
I don't think I.
No, she killed the shit out of that guy.
No, I killed him. I didn't bring him.
No,
back.
but
Revived him,
first-
then killed him. That's
Exactly, yes.
Because I'm
Oh,
pretty sure
right.
someone killed him.
Holy shit, that's right.
yeah, that was so hardcore.
I don't know actually. I don't know if you recall that.
I wasn't there.
No, I don't recall if we told anybody.
You
Who
know,
was it?
There was
It
somebody
it
was
was
there
you.
it
with
was
you.
only
It was
Farron.
me, Morella, and Farron, but I don't know if even Morella saw it, right? Or was it just Farron?
Oh, I wasn't there. So
It was
just
Cree,
Farron. It was,
or not Cree. What was your last get? Chester.
It was Chester. Yeah.
Oh my god, long gone.
Well, it would be
Slave to
nice
the
if we
aboleth.
could ask Farron, but
Whatever. Getting off
I
track
don't think
here.
so. I don't think we said no. You wouldn't have known that I did that. No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think so
So-
either. Because I think
I
that
think we
Farron.
kind of kept it to ourselves.
Yeah, I think Farron specifically was
time.
like, "You're scary," and now I'm not going to say anything because I don't want want to
Okay.
be head cracked.
All right. In that case, I say no. I didn't even know. I knew she was a healer, but I didn't know she could bring those sorts of magics
Well,
forth.
she's something. She's not just a priestess. I'm not sure what she is yet, but I think we all know that by now.
Yeah, she's also annoying.
Really, that's where you're gonna.
She took my poison.
Hannibal, sometimes your friends save you from yourself. Now, look, this is the place that Farron and I found last time. If there's anything for us to learn, it's probably in here, even if it doesn't look like he's been here in a while.
All right.
I suppose it'd be a bit much to try to gauge how much the room might have changed since the last time I was here.
I don't think that's a bit much. It hasn't been that long.
Okay.
Roll a history check, and we'll see if you can identify.
History? I mean, I say that.
Yeah, that's
My
like
suggestion would be
the
investigation. Either way, it's a flat-in check for me.
yeah, basically. I would say history because that's like recalling information. That's the only reason why I say that.
So wait, hold on. Is detect magic a first level spell?
It is.
Yes.
Shit!
yeah, man.
I've had it at second level for some reason forever.
So
So you can refund yourself a bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
refund your points if you have it.
Okay, so yeah, in that case, I used a second level spell slot before with it. Oh, so can I have one of those back?
Sure.
Or you know what? I'll just have my 2 first levels back and just say I used the other second level.
I mean, unless you plan on marching to the palace today, you'll probably be fine.
Why would we not?
Whatever. I'm not gonna count it. I'm just gonna move it over.
I'm pretty fucked. I don't know about you.
I have plenty of healing power left.
No. Like I want to be at full fucking strength for that motherfucker.
Man. Okay, so yeah, with the 17 Jericho, you definitely can tell that there are some things that have changed. It looks like I think you can almost tell that the room configuration has been modified in such a way that it is harder for people who might be approaching to kind of get a good idea of what's going on. Probably in reference to the last theft that occurred here.
Approaching, as in.
Yeah, so like as
for
you
someone to just sneak in and quickly assess what's
yeah,
going
exactly.
on.
So I think that as you walk down the hallway, you realize that there, like, the desk, which was clearly visible for, is now like tucked away in a corner, like behind a pillar. I think you realize that like the rune that is on the ground is actually covered up, so that somebody just walking through wouldn't be able to kind of tell what was going on in here.
Yeah.
It seems like whoever, Varen may have thought that he revealed too much and was too careless. You also probably get the idea that everything is set pretty far back from the entryway. And I think that as you begin to walk around, your history check this is not really history, but I think that like your perception in this situation of knowing the room is different. You realize there are smaller runes of magic that have been burned out because the caster has died.
Yeah.
That look to be like magical traps that were aimed in the direction of the door. It looks like you definitely get the feeling that if you would have come down here prior to handling the situation, that you would have had much more to deal with than you did previously.
Yeah. And as he's taking stock of this, Jericho will point that out to. Is it just Hannibal with me now?
Yes, it is
Yeah.
just Hannibal.
Yeah, point that out to Hannibal, just saying, looks like we rattled him with our previous escapades here. Not that it did him much good, but there are remnants of runes, points to various locations, if you can read anything into those.
Yeah, can I? Or like, I got my detective magic going. Can I also get just a look across the room, see if there's anything pinging?
Yeah, so I think that you can see residual evocation magic on the runes. Obviously, they were meant to blow up anyone that came in the room.
God, those are expensive.
They are, yes. I think that I don't think you see the magic that is in this room. I think you kind of like smell and taste it, Hannibal. I think that like it's clear that this was a powerful mage's study. It kind of gives you that same feel as when you were in the Great Library of Nuln, right? Where like there's just like so much residual layers here that it's hard to discern one from the other. As far as things that are actually like glowing magical, there are 2 items in this room that are glowing magical to the visible eye, like as you're just walking through. One is there's a quill in a little inkwell that is clearly glowing magical. It appears to be, is it enchantment? I think it is enchantment. Let me check that. But that is one thing that is glowing magical, and then the other thing that is glowing magical is you can see that there is it's I say it's one thing, but it's actually a bundle of 3 scrolls that are kind of tucked away in the upper portion of the desk that's in here, and they're all tied together as well. And you can see that there is a seal. There's like a wax seal on them, and they're closed. But they appear to be kind of brimming with, all of them are brimming with probably evocation magic.
Okay, I'm point out that that's enchantment, that's evocation. I'm gonna take a look at these evocation scrolls.
Yeah, so they're wax sealed, and you can obviously break the seal and kind of open them up if you'd like.
No, I'm not going to do that because can I try to identify?
I just want to say it's like Jackson has learned, and that's really impressive.
We're all very proud.
Mm-hmm. So, can I try to maybe make a check to try to determine what this is?
Sure. Yeah.
Does it look like a magic scroll?
Yeah. I mean, obviously they're magic scrolls. They all appear to be like in the same like realm. They're all evocation magic. None of them are like glowing any brighter than the others. So I think that you can roll an Arcana, but not like opening them and reading them is going to make it much harder to actually determine what they might be. Because just looking at pieces of paper, like I think that the best outcome here with a high roll is, well, it could be one of these things, right?
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and go for it.
Yeah, go for
it. Seeing how carefully you're looking them over, Jericho will point out, assuming that I'm reading this correctly, the runes around the room seem to have burnt out. If he did have some kind of protection on those, surely that would have died with him, wouldn't it?
If these are separately enchanted, meaning that if these... Basically what I'm trying to get is that this probably wasn't... This was either cast by him to be more permanent, or this wasn't cast by him. This is something he got.
Fair enough. Don't you have a ghost baby or something that can check this for you?
There's only 3 of these. Don't feel like losing. So I'm just going to check them.
All right.
Okay. 15's pretty good. So I think that it's pretty clear that like you could probably tell like the level of magic here. It's probably like in the range of a level 2 magical spell. Scrolls like this they're not common. A lot of times they are like single use only, and they contain a spell that like once the seal is broken and whatever like incantation is read, you can essentially just like use the spell on the scroll, and usually then the scroll burns up after the use. So the only thing that you wouldn't know is what the spell is. I think that that's like the unknown portion here.
Okay, so I have 3 level 2 scrolls.
Specifically evocation too, remember that.
Okay, 3 level 2 evocation scrolls. All right, I'm pocketing these. And let's take a look at this quill. I'm definitely not touching this.
Why don't you prick your
is,
finger and begin writing with it?
I do just that. No, I don't.
Oddly enough, Kree dies.
Yeah, it's actually exactly what happens.
So
Kree
yeah.
actually dies.
Can I see anything that was written with those?
Yeah, so I think that distinctly, it's the only like quill and ink that you see on the table. You can see that there are a bunch of other parchments that appear to have like some writing on them. And there are other scrolls that are like rolled up and sealed, but they don't have like magic dripping off of them like the one you have is, or like the 3 you have are.
Okay. Can I make a check again for this one?
I think that your current check applies to like the whole scenario here.
Okay.
I think that this quill and ink has the general sense of, so like there's a lot of different things that like enchanted quill and inks can do. Sometimes they are simple like automatic writing tools, like you can dictate to the quill and ink and it'll write for you. Sometimes they are used in greater magical rituals, right? Like to make more powerful things than you could just by channeling magic through a regular quill and ink. Kind of used as kind of like a secondary focus almost. And probably some other things that you could do are signing contracts, like specifically like important magical sealing binding contracts. So perhaps if you're trying to get someone to like sign a contract, if you give them the magical quill and ink, they'll be compelled to follow that contract to the letter, right? Like those are the other types of things that you can do with it.
Okay, I'll offer this to Jericho.
The ink and quill?
Yes, it's a magical item.
I assumed as much. Thank you. I assume it's got some horrifying drawbacks, but I suppose we'll consider that for later. I'm sure I can. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and can I investigate the room for anything important?
Yeah, while Hannibal's been doing this, Jericho has been searching for Varen's evil diary.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you want to make a an investigation roll, Jericho?
Investigation, you say? Yeah. And
yeah, I definitely think
will
this is an
use
investigation.
inspiration on this.
That's probably a good idea. Oof.
Nope.
Ouch.
Can I also make it after I check that?
I think that yeah, but I want to give Jericho what he finds here because a 14 like isn't terrible, right? Like that's still pretty good. I think that a 14 here will give you some things. I think that as you begin kind of like opening drawers and going through the paperwork that's here, you see a lot of it appears to be similar to the logistical paperwork that you were dealing with that one local, right? With that one, what was his name? God, I don't even remember. On that excursion, you went with Farron to gather all that like logistical paperwork from the guildmaster's house,
right?
Or the what did I call it? Anyway, a lot of this is similar to that. Like it's a lot of like there's a lot of lists of ingredients. There's a lot of like we need 5,000 pounds of human bones, right? Like a lot of weird stuff like that. That you would assume to be in a necromancer study. And I think that a 14 is definitely enough to get you a couple of like logbooks, certainly. Perhaps from some experiments, because the thing about Varen is that makes him perhaps similar to Hannibal in a lot of ways. Is
devastating.
Yeah, is the fact that he is a very inquisitive person. In fact, it's probably what got him into trouble in the first place.
The fact that you're still using like present tense verbs for Varen is really unsettling. I assume that's intentional.
Is everything ever not intentional?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
So the reason Varen is so inquisitive is probably what got him into trouble in the first place. Who just happens to find a copy or possibly one of the books of Nagash, who just happens to then like learn how to use it, right? Because that's like a whole nother level of stuff. Like having it and like absorbing power from it is one thing, using it, and in fact, also I'll remind you, now that you know what it is, the fact that he was ripping pages out of it and then using that to cast some sort of horrific magic, that's like even further beyond what would normally happen. So he probably paid a lot for like to have that level of magic. So I think that you see a lot of like trial and error logs. And I think that the interesting one that you pick up is you pick up a logbook perhaps on kind of the build up to creating a hunter.
Oh.
And I think that is probably like the interesting element. Essentially, what it boiled down to is you need some sort of permanent focus. It needs to have energy channeled into it, and then it needs to have a proper like spirit host to latch onto. Because they actually have personalities, right? They're not just mindless undead. So it seems like the three things required are some sort of permanent focus, some sort of spirit or connection to a spirit that can act as its like personality, and then it requires time and channeled energy into it over the course of a week or so in order to create it proper. And that's kind of like what it boiled down to. And again, you see all the trial and error leading up to that. Like, I tried a more powerful necromancer spell, but it boiled down into just making more, skeletons instead of the one that I wanted. And then like I found this particularly rare item that then I channeled this much energy into it, but then it was too little, and so it just made the item, mundane and useless. So like there's the whole process leading up to that. And that's I think the interesting thing you find with that.
Okay.
Can I make a?
Sure. Would you like to?
I'm trying to see if considering how this guy from a break-in decided to beef up security. I'm trying to look up for things he's hidden, not necessarily like researchers, but things that he might have hidden somewhere.
Sure. Yeah. So why don't you roll your investigation check, and we'll give you the basic generic stuff that Jericho was kind of looking for the diary,
covered the basics,
searching for. Yeah. So maybe you're looking for the more intense stuff.
I would like to use my Tactic Chaos.
Sure.
Because it regenerated when I used Detect Magic.
Correct.
Alright.
You mean when you poisoned Kree?
Oh, God damn it, really?
So yeah, so a 15, I think you find a lot of the, like, you begin searching through a lot of the same stuff that Jericho did. I definitely think you don't find any, like, hidden compartments on the desk or anything like that. I think that the one interesting thing that you find is in kind of fitting with the staff that you carry now. You find a logbook detailing how what the lead up process to the dragon was, although the data is incomplete, obviously because he was not able to complete his research and experimentation with that. That was rudely interrupted.
Could this give me a leg up on mastering the dragon?
Yes, that is exactly what it was going to do.
Yeah.
I think that you can have a free success from having this logbook and knowing exactly kind of where this power came from. You can have a free success on your learning of the staff.
Right now?
Yeah, right now. You just get it.
Boom, I'm halfway there.
See, look at that. Cool. So as the group of you scour, or the two of you scour, and you get things back up, that's probably a great place to take our break for the day. So let's do that. Let's be back at 15 after, and then we will catch up with Varela and Farron and Kree and Aelin. See what they've been doing.
Will, you there?
We won't catch up with Phil. He's still active though. I wonder if he just can't speak to us. Something weird is
Will,
going
if
on.
you're there,
Just type.
give us a sign.
I honestly
Yeah.
hope his face is on his keyboard and he's just typing a letter and that's keeping him active in Discord.
I hope so.
That would be amazing. I hope he wakes up
Yeah,
with like
but we would see him typing. That's the thing.
well, maybe
No,
he's
if
not
you
maybe he's
hold it
not on the
down.
screen or whatever. Like maybe he's
Maybe
I
he's
heard
typing
something
one of
about-
us a personal message.
yeah,
I
or
heard
like
Maybe
something from
maybe
Will.
you just
What?
wild guess here. Maybe he's just fucking had enough of us.
He just
What?
got
No.
Pinocchio hours ago, and will never ever come.
It-
correct.
Dalton,
Yeah.
did you just say you got a message from him?
No, I saw his mic pick up. I think like he snored or something like that.
Oh my god.
So if we
I-
yell loud enough,
I'm gonna do the break. We'll see you guys in like 10 minutes. Okay. Or that devolves into something ridiculous. Gonna take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.